All right, guys, welcome back into Spence and Surge, and we are sitting here tonight, and it's been this is a wild developing story that we're going to cover tonight, and then maybe tomorrow, kind of going to go back and really start to scour some of the biggest pickups, because today was just a day where just so much happened, and we might need to update several of the programs that are nailing this portal, and really it requires hours and hours of time to kind of decipher what happened in the portal. But the point is that Kenny Minchey, was committed to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. The Nebraska picked out Kenny Minchey. Minchey is a native of Hendersonville, Tennessee. He was a backup for C.J. Carr at Notre Dame. He got in mop-up duty when they were blowing teams out. He's 6'3", has a lot of mobility, functional mobility. I don't know if he's going to be running people over or running down the field scrambling, but he's a very mobile quarterback with some game experience. And he was committed to Dana Holgorsen and to Matt Rhule and to the Nebraska Cornhusker football program. What happened today is really not seen often in portals or really it's very rare what happened, because Kenny Minchey was a Nebraska target for a while. I believe that he went on a visit to Nebraska. And what ended up happening was Kenny Minchey was locked into Nebraska. So Nebraska has spent, the last couple of days assuming that they have TJ Lateef and that they have Kenny Minchey, and Kenny Minchey's, most likely going to be their starting quarterback. They agreed to a deal. They got him on campus. They did the thing. So Nebraska's right now, they've recruited guys around Kenny Minchey, meaning they assumed that the 6'3" quarterback was going to help out Nebraska. So the way that they've attacked their transfer portal, everyone that they're targeting, whether it be running back, whether it be wide receiver, whether it be the offensive line, it all goes downstream on the offensive side of the football based on your quarterback. And Nebraska was putting all of their eggs into this player, Kenny Minchey. I mean, this was something that was going on for weeks, was the infatuation with Nebraska and Kenny Minchey. So Nebraska, the last few days, has spent zero time thinking about quarterback, because they never expected this to happen. What happened today is unprecedented, and it's absolutely mind-boggling what happened. So Kenny Minchey today decommits from Nebraska. Was at Nebraska for 24 hours. He leaves Nebraska, goes back on his commitment, and is now heading out to Lexington, Kentucky, and suddenly Nebraska has no quarterbacks at all. So, man, oh man. There's several big takeaways here with the developments of what happened today. One is that Nebraska right now is having a lot of problems. Matt Rhule in Nebraska, they have problems. This first 3 years has been mired, I guess we could say, in mediocrity. First year, I think it was 4-8. Last year, 6-6. This year, easy schedule, 7-5, including blowout losses to Penn State, to Iowa. They got blown out by Minnesota this year when Dylan Rhule was quarterback there. They were fortunate to beat Michigan State. So, they lost the USC football game. Dylan Rhule, who is a decent quarterback and I've seen TJ Lateef through a couple of games. Dylan's a better player than Lateef. Nebraska wasn't able to retain Dylan Rhule. Dana Holgorsen, in this offense, honestly, it looked like Dana might have lost his fastball and it was better off in 2016 or 2017. You had Emmett Johnson pretty much carrying the entire offense. You let go of Dillon. You let go of Dominic Rhule. Your defensive coordinator hired this year, John Butler, was a total miss and a failure after Tony White leaves for a lateral job in Florida State. But the most alarming thing is that Nebraska, the players don't believe in Nebraska, especially quarterback, and that stems from, the Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield failures in Carolina. It stems from the failures of Jeff Sims, where Jeff Sims at Arizona State played a lot better than he did at Nebraska. I mean, Jeff Sims this year helped the Sun Devils go to an 8-4 season, okay, and Jeff Sims had some big moments. And at Nebraska, he was a shell of himself at the University of Nebraska. Dylan Rhule, did Matt Rhule develop Dylan Rhule, or was Dylan Rhule another Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold problem? So how about the wide receivers? Like, have you ever seen a wide receiver get better under Matt Rhule in this offense? So Kenny Minchey, the thing was Kentucky was all in on Sam Leavitt. So Kenny Minchey's like, okay, I'm going to go get a bag from Nebraska. I think this is the best I got. But when Will Stein said, I'm available and I'm going to pick you to be the starting quarterback in Kentucky, it's a no-brainer. Because Will Stein has, helped Bo Nix become top 12 pick in the NFL draft. Dylan Gabriel, third-round quarterback, even at 5'10", and kind of a weaker arm for the NFL game. And Dante Moore. And then Frank Harris at UTSA. Garrett Wilson going back to Lake Travis High School in Texas. So Will Stein, from an offensive coordinator perspective, is a much better coach in the year 2026 than Dana Holgorsen and especially than Matt Rhule. And the other part that needs to be said here is that the University of Kentucky now has more resources in the game of football than the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So for me, it's a little hard because I've been watching college football 15 years. If you're somebody in your 50s that's 20 years older than I am, it must be even harder to comprehend that the University of Kentucky, that the University of Indiana, that these Midwestern programs that are only good in basketball really and that are bottom feeders in their conference in football, how they have more money to spend than Nebraska, than Iowa, than a Georgia, than an Alabama. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's actually very good for the players. It's great for the parity of the sport. I like several aspects of it. The portal's exciting. I feel bad for Matt Rhule in this instance in Nebraska. But Nebraska fans that are also, really sad about this, they were only sad for about 24 hours. I mean, Kenny Minchey is still the most unknown commodity. It's not like you're getting a guy that was an absolute star quarterback. This guy hasn't played a college football game. We have no idea. He could be a complete flop. He could be a total flop. So the concerning part is that Matt Rhule and Dana Holgorsen can't hang on to any quarterback. They can't hang on to any offensive player. And they're not getting any booster support. And after all the turmoil, if you're a booster at Nebraska, you kind of understand why these boosters are not pouring into Matt Rhule. Because Matt Rhule's like, okay, we're going to go with Jeff Sims and Satterfield. Okay, it doesn't work. Okay, Dylan Rhule is the future of the program. The boosters put in huge money for Dylan Rhule to get him here. And then Dylan doesn't play that well. And then Dylan leaves. And then you look at this defensive line class. You look at this offensive line. Nebraska paid a ton for this offensive line last year, and they can't protect the quarterback. Defensively, the defensive line at Nebraska was a total joke. The defense, everyone ran the football on Nebraska, Michigan, Cincinnati. Everyone ran the football. So Matt Rhule's changing another coordinator. It's just constantly reshuffling the deck at the University of Nebraska. But Nebraska doesn't have money. And it is devastating, not that you lose Kenny Minchey. Kenny Minchey might end up being a really good quarterback. Like, I liked what he did in the spring game, but it's like a high school player. We haven't seen the guy play. But now Nebraska, they couldn't secure Minchey because they don't have the money for it. And Nebraska decided that Kenny Minchey was the guy. And they decided that we're good on Minchey, when really they didn't have a lock-solid commitment, because Minchey was obviously still talking to other programs, so they didn't lock it down. And now Nebraska's so behind in this very important portal. And you don't know who your quarterback's going to be. And Kenny Minchey, I mean, I do feel bad. I think Kenny Minchey might have duped Nebraska a little bit. Some blame has to be on Kenny Minchey because he misled an entire football program. But the football program also chose to entrust Kenny Minchey and his agents and said, this is a guy that we're comfortable with. Matt Rhule and these guys, they do background checks, and they're like, this quarterback is going to stay loyal to Nebraska. This guy wants to be here, and they misjudged that because he's going to Lexington now. Okay? And Kenny Minchey's free to do that. So, yeah, there's some blame that should be to Kenny Minchey because he duped Nebraska and he duped the portal cycle, and I'm sure Nebraska, the coaches are not happy about that. But Nebraska, too, has to do their homework, and they have to go get another good portal quarterback. And you have to be adaptive in this in this changing landscape. But the entire offense was built around this player. I don't think TJ Lateef was going to be the starter. A lot of quarterbacks have since committed. They've since gone on visits. Nebraska's behind the 8 ball right now. But Matt Rhule, if you had a coach that was producing consistent results and a coach that connected with the boosters, and you had an athletic director in Troy Dennon and Matt Rhule that were raising funds together, Nebraska every single year has problems. Whether it's Trev Alberts, whether it's coaches being fired, whether it's star players leaving the program, Nebraska is turning into an average football program. And now you have a backup quarterback leaving you for Kentucky in the SEC. But maybe Kentucky is ready to be that elite program. I don't know where they're getting the money from. They're paying a huge sum out to Stoops, but maybe Will Stein and Kentucky's going to be the SEC's version of Texas Tech. And that's what's fascinating, I guess, about the portal is I don't see Arkansas. I even see Kentucky might even have more money than Auburn. I mean, that's crazy. Kentucky's going to be beating Auburn in football if they do it right. So a part of that is exciting for the fans of Lexington. They're freaking loving this. For Nebraska, for Matt Rhule, this is massively disappointing. And maybe there will be rules in place in the future that when you sign that dotted line and agree to a contract, that you cannot be no longer available to seek other options when you commit to a school and a deal. But Sam Leavitt leaning towards LSU because Brendan Sorsby, by the way, if Sorsby, maybe this is a complete hypothetical world, but say that Sam Leavitt, or say that Brendan Sorsby went to LSU, Sam Leavitt goes to Kentucky over Texas Tech. Kenny Minchey's still probably at Nebraska. Now, the good news for all of this is that it's a wake-up call for Nebraska. There is a silver lining. One, the kid's also never played football before. He's never started a game. So fans that are going to be crying about this, I mean, it's a 24-hour, relationship with a player. The other thing I'm going to mention here in this video is that after the portal ends, there is no spring portal. So that's a good step by college football because that means you got what you got, and players it's not you're going to be developing them in spring and then they're going to bounce. We're going to get to see spring games, and next year's going to be next year. So that's going to be exciting. That's a great part of college football, that there is only one portal window. But yeah, Kenny Minchey kind of duped Nebraska. Nebraska also didn't read into the Minchey stuff very well. They didn't secure the bag at all. They didn't secure the commitment whatsoever. Nebraska now has to go find another quarterback, How is Nebraska preparing for this massive change in all of their offseason plans? The turmoil of Matt Rhule continues with the Rhule drama, the Donnie Rhule drama, the defensive coordinator hire being, a really poor hire, the defensive line being poor. It's like a whack-a-mole of issues. Like one year when you have a good defensive line and you have Hutmacher and Robinson, you have a good defensive line. You have a good secondary. Then your quarterback and your offense is poor. One year you have terrible wide receivers. Next year you get an Isaiah Hunter, Ja'Cory Barney. You have decent wide receiver talent. But you overpay for Dane Key and you overpay for offensive linemen. I think that they got an offensive lineman, if I'm not mistaken, from Alabama that was supposed to come in and be a stud player and not very good. So got Jeep Wade. I love the Arch and Jeep Wade hires. I kind of understand Minchey wanting to go to Kentucky and Will Stein. I kind of understand it. I have mixed feelings about the whole thing. Like, Minchey's free to go where he wants, getting a good pay grade, better quarterback developer. Maybe the fact that he committed to Nebraska so early in this process, maybe he should have kept it open so that, I'm sure maybe Minchey wants that back. I'm sure maybe Minchey would have rather just kept it open and then just went to UK instead. But this is crazy, man. This is an interesting time. What an interesting predicament now that Kentucky football has more money and resources than Nebraska. That Kentucky football is here. Kentucky football is on the rise. Nebraska football is very average in so much that they're doing, just flat out. And this is a massive, I think it's a pretty big loss because obviously Dana and Matt really like this guy, but I mean, he also hasn't played a game, so I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth here, but it is just what a wild commitment and decommitment story this is, for Kenny Minchey and for Nebraska football and Kentucky football.